In the mid-1800s, there was a young man who was born and came into a leadership role. Interestingly, though, he came into that leadership role by quitting school in grade 4 and going to work. He was trying to learn trades, and eventually he borrowed $150 from his aunt and started his first business. That business didn't go very well. Then he started his second business, and that one didn't go so well either. But then his third business went well. And by 1900, that business was worth $1 million. That would be over $30 million in today's value. And then he sold it. And he took all of that $1 million and he put it into another company. And that was a big risk to take, but he had a vision. And that vision was to make chocolate. His name was Milton Hershey, and you've seen the Hershey's Kiss. They now make 70 million of these a day here in the United States. And Milton Hershey had a vision, and he led the change to get to that vision. And it wasn't just the Hershey Kiss that he created and chocolate. He created a town. He created a zoo, an amusement park, a top medical institution, and even one of the world-renowned orphanages called the Hershey School. All of that because of changing from making caramel to making chocolate. Milton Hershey understood what it meant to lead change. And you can too. If you're a leader, all of us as leaders are responsible for leading change. And right now I'd like to share with you just 6 principles for what it takes to be an effective leader of change. The first principle I want to share with you has to do with the fact that vision is powerful and you have to share it. I love this quote by James Velasco: "Change is hard because people overestimate what they have and underestimate what could be. But to move people from what they have to what could be requires a compelling vision." The second principle in leading change has to do with resistance. Resistance is normal, and we have to expect it. I love the quote from our 28th President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, when he said, "If you want to create enemies, change something." People process change differently. As you can see from the graphic to my left, change, some people embrace it quickly. They love it. They thrive on that change. Other people, change is difficult, stressful, and they will resist it. So you have to know your people, and you have to know how they're going to process change before you institute that change. But change is normal, so you have to be prepared for it. The third principle for leading change has to do with trust. Trust is essential, and so you have to earn it. Trust is what allows people to follow you, buy into your vision, and take their cues from you. But trust is hard to earn and very easy to lose. And the things that we have to do to earn that trust have to do with being dependable, being predictable, following through on what we say, being transparent, not overselling and under-delivering, but doing what we said we would do. The fourth principle for leading change is communication is vital. Use it. Our consulting team here at the center has over 300 years of leadership and consulting experience. And when you take that combined, it's interesting. Not once have we ever had someone say to us, our leadership over-communicates to us. John Cotter, one of the world-renowned researchers in change processes, put it this way. He did a study and he looked at what happens with communication in an organization. And he found that in a 3-month period, an average employee heard 2,300,000 words or numbers that were thrown at them. But when it came to the change that the leader was trying to sell, they only heard about 14,000 words. So obviously, change requires an enormous amount of communication, and just when you think you've communicated it, you got to communicate it again. The fifth principle for leading change has to do with execution. Execution is critical, so do it. There are times when leaders cast a grandiose vision for change and nothing ever happens. The primary reasons for this: they don't know how to manage the resistance, they don't like the conflict and feel the tension from that. Sometimes they don't delegate and empower people to do it. And still other times, what happens is a leader doesn't really have an accountability system to make sure it is done. Effective change requires good execution. And the final principle for effectively leading change has to do with risk. You see, risk is not optional, and you have to accept it. Patricia Miranda was an unathletic, overweight teenage girl. And it was at that time in 8th grade that she decided to join the boys wrestling team. What a courageous and crazy decision. But during that time, she grew in her confidence and she took risks. And she ultimately ended up becoming the captain of her team and then went on to wrestle for Stanford University. And not only that, she was the first woman to beat a man in NCAA wrestling history. She even went on to become a bronze medal winner in the first women's Olympic wrestling team. You see, Miranda was a risk taker. And she even went on to Yale Law School and got her law degree. But she has an interesting quote that I read that reminded me of the importance of what you have to do when you're leading change. She said this: "Sometimes I'd go home and say, well, I was a coward today, but I get to change that tomorrow." There are times in leading change you'll feel like quitting, but you have to remember these words from Miranda, and that is, never quit. If you are a leader, you're responsible for leading change. I challenge you to apply these 6 principles to the change that you are leading, and we would love to hear how it's going for you. Thanks for watching.